extracting the sugar out of that grain and getting it into the water, right? That's going to create what we call wort, W-O-R-T, very sexy German word, right? That's going to be what is eventually going to become beer, right? So once we're done with stirring, we're going to stop stirring it and let the grain settle, okay? Because there's a false bottom in that tank. Basically, it's a fine grain filter. And so the liquid's going to settle out the bottom. We're going to recirculate it back to the top. That process is called lautering. And what we're going to do there is basically use that grain bed as a natural filter to get out those really fine particulates that we just can't get to. That grain bed actually acts as a top of the filter as we recirculate it to the top. Okay. Then we're going to take that wort and we're going to bring it over here to the boil kettle. But first, we got to get rid of all this spent grain, right? We got like 2,000 to 8,000 pounds of grain just sitting in there now, right? So we're going to rake that out into these big mine cart looking things. And then we have a farmer who actually comes and picks it up from us and uses it for feed, right? And we pay him to do that. Seems backwards, right? He's getting grain. Why are we paying him?
Yeah.
Well, there's almost 140 breweries in San Diego County. Basic economics of supply and demand. There's a lot more spent grain than there are cattle food. So we're going to have to get rid of the grain one way or another. We might as well actually have it used for something instead of just sending it to a can, right? The thing is, he doesn't have to come get that grain every single day because now that it's wet and open to the air, there's yeast in the air everywhere. It will actually start to spontaneously ferment that grain if it lets it sit for too long, right? Then we wind up with a drunk cows. That's going to be a bad day for everybody but the cows, right? So now that we've got rid of our grain, we're going to take our wort here, we're going to bring it up to a nice rolling boil, and then we're going to add ingredient number 3, which is hops. Okay? Hops are going to be added at different times during the boil to achieve different effects in the final product. Right? So boiling takes about 30 minutes. The first hops you add in are called bittering hops. You're going to add those early in the process. They're going to add more to the flavor of the beer. Whereas hops that you add later on in the boil process are called aroma hops. They're going to add more to the way this beer smells, right? Smell's an important part of beer, right? Because 80% of what you taste starts out as smell. So if you can't smell it, you can't taste it, right? So we got to add certain things just to kind of change up that aroma as well, right? So now what we have is boiling hot, bitter sugar water. Right? Not quite to beer just yet. So what we have to do is we have to transfer it to one of our fermentation vessels, which are all the things you see around here with the cone bottoms on them. Those are all fermentation vessels, okay? We're going to transfer it to one of those, and then we're going to add yeast to start fermenting it. The problem is, yeast is a living organism. If we just throw it into boiling hot water, it will die, right? And then we would get no alcohol, and that would be sad. So, first and foremost, we're going to run it through our heat exchanger here. Just this box right here. You'll notice it looks a lot like a car radiator. It functions exactly the same way. Hot wort goes through one set of tubes, cold water goes into the other. Through a combination of convection and conduction, we're going to transfer that heat into the cold water, get our wort down to a nice temperature, and send it off to our fermentation vessels. Alright? Then we're going to add yeast and begin fermentation. So I got to go get the rest of the beer we're going to drink, so you guys can hang out here and take some pictures if you would like. I do need to get rid of the rest of this because I don't want to pour it out.
You guys are good.
I'm not gonna be.
So I'll be right back. Just if you guys do want to climb through, you can. Just be careful. Here we are. So lagers are going to be cold bottom fermented beers. Okay, that means that the yeast is going to settle into the bottom of the tank, eat its way through the top, catalyzing all that sugar, creating alcohol. Yay! And CO2, whatever. Right. So that process is going to happen between 40 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's going to take 6 to 18 weeks to complete. It's a very slow, very calm process, right? Now, ales, on the other hand, start at the top. They're top fermenting beers, and they're going to eat the sugar all the way down to the bottom. Okay, this process happens between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and takes 2 to 6 weeks, right? So while lagers are the most commonly drank beer around the world, most craft breweries you're going to find are going to do ales. Because if you only got 3 or 4 fermenters, having one taken up for potentially 3 months while you ferment a lager, that's going to come out at like 4.5% and be like, okay, it's a lager, right? You could have come out with like 5 other cool beers by then, right? So most craft breweries are going to do that. Obviously, we have a pretty high capacity here, so we can do a lager year round, and that's why we have that one. Speaking to our capacity, we have 10 90-barrel fermenters, 6 60-barrel fermenters, 4 50-barrel fermenters, and 2 7-barrel fermenters. All right. Now I just said barrel like 6 times. what the hell is a barrel, right? So a barrel is 31 gallons of beer, okay? So now a keg that you've probably seen and maybe done a handstand on with hose in your mouth, that is going to be 15 and a half gallons. So what we call a half barrel in the industry, right? So 2 kegs, 1 barrel. 90 barrel fermenter, 180 kegs, right? So to put it in perspective, if you drank 4 pints every single day, it would take you 15 years to drink 90 barrels worth of beer.
15 years?
15 years.
Holy shit.
It's a lot of beer. So basically we're gonna have that, you can actually see the fermentation process happening right here, kind of. Come on, burp for me, there it goes. Every now and then you see little bubbles popping out of there.
Yeah.
That is actually the CO2 that's being produced from that fermentation process. It's yeast farts is what it is, it's yeast farts. So that's what those little bubbles are. The reason that hose goes into a bucket of water is because we want CO2 to come out. We don't want air to go in because air has bacteria in it, and bacteria makes beer gross, right? Except for yeast, which is good bacteria. Right? We really want the bacteria we want in it. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys a little taste of our next beer here. This is the Mission IPA. It's gonna be a West Coast style IPA, so it's gonna be citrusy and a little bit piney. It's also clear the way God intended IPAs to be.
My fourth one so far.
I'm maybe a little bit biased.
So is this different between ale and lager, just the temperature at which?
It's actually the type of yeast,
Okay.
but those yeasts do prefer very specific temperatures and conditions.
How does this differ from the hazy IPA?
So this one's going to be a little bit brighter. You're going to have a little lighter body to it. You're going to have the ABV and everything's going to be about the same. It's going to be a little more bitter because the hazies are going to give you that kind of juicy, orange juicy finish, whereas with a typical West Coast, this one's not going to be super bitter. Ours is pretty well balanced. It's like a little bit bitter, a little malty, but not too crazy either direction. Sits right about 70 IBUs. It's a really good example of like the style. You can obviously go hoppier. You can add fruity stuff to it to make it even less bitter. All kinds of different things. But this is just a typical West Coast right here. So now that once our fermentation process is finished, once this thing stops bubbling and we're all good, we've got beer, right? It's warm and it's flat, but it's technically beer, right? For thousands of years.
Do you wait for it to stop bubbling to know it's done, or you just set a timer?
Well, they'll check on it, obviously, like certain dates, but for the most part, yeah, once it's done bubbling, then they'll test it to make sure, see what the gravity's where we want it to be. There might be, if it's not quite where we want it to be, they can re-pitch yeast and add a little more to keep it going and bring it back. But for the most part, yeah, that's going to be your main indicator that it's ready to go. But the guys are in here every single day checking all that stuff. They have pretty meticulous logs that they take.
Is that a taste test or what kind of test?
Yeah, they'll taste it, but it's also going to be pH tests, IBU tests, and alcohol tests, like testing for the specific gravity. So now we've got that warm, flat beer, right? We don't like warm, flat beer. For thousands of years, that's how you drank beer, because you couldn't refrigerate it and you couldn't recarbonate it, so you just drank warm, flat beer. That was the thing.
So like Vikings and shit,
Yep.
they all drink flat. Okay, interesting.
We don't like warm, flat beer. We like cold, fizzy beer, right? So we're going to transfer beer from our fermentation vessels to these 2 big guys behind me. These are what we call our bright beer tanks, okay? We're going to do that by first sending it through the centrifuge back there on the right-hand corner there. That's going to spin the beer up at a high rate of speed to get all the main particulates out. Then we're going to run through one more filter to make sure that beer is nice and clear. Obviously, we don't do that for things like the Hefeweizen, the hazy IPAs, that sort of thing, where we want that stuff in there. But for everything else, we're going to filter it, send it off to the bright beer tanks, where we're going to chill it down to 38 to 42 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to add CO2 back into the solution. Now we do that by hooking up a hose to one of these little nozzles down here, and that CO2 goes into what we call the carbonation stone. Right? It's a bit of a misnomer. It's not actually a stone. It's like a metal lattice work that creates tiny microscopic CO2 bubbles. So that way they can be absorbed into the solution. So when I pour you a pint, it stays fizzy beginning to end. Unless you really nurse it, in which case that's your problem and not mine. Right? I can't do anything about it after that. But it should stay fizzy all the way through. That's because that CO2 is in the solution. Right? So now what we have is cold, fizzy beer. Problem is it's in these tanks, right? It's not in your bellies. So now we got to get into kegs, cans, and bottles, all of which we also do right here in the brewery. So it starts right here with our kegging stand, where one brewer is literally one of our production guys can literally hook up 3 kegs at a time. Hits the start button, it fills them up with beer. Once it's done, it stops. Take them off, put them onto a pallet, repeat until the pallet's full, ship it out. Easy peasy, Japanese, right? All right, so the other thing we have are our bottling and canning lines. So we're gonna take a look at our bottling line next, if you guys want to follow me.
Brewery. So
UV light out. The bottles are gonna slide down the line, they'll get flipped upside down, rinsed out, and then flip back over and then filled up with CO2. Now the reason we're gonna fill up with CO2 is because we need to purge all the oxygen out of the bottles. Because oxygen left in the bottle can oxidize the beer, which produces flavors like cardboard and paper. Right? So we don't want any of that, so that's why we're gonna do the CO2 purge. Once our bottles are nice and clean and purged, they're gonna get filled up in the back corner over there. Then they come along here where they're gonna get a label and a bottle cap. Slide on down the line where they're gonna get separated in nice neat lines. Drop straight into 6-packs, which get loaded into our cases. The cases go onto a pallet. 4 6-packs to a case, 30 cases to a pallet. Our production team and this line will fill up an entire pallet worth of cases in 11 minutes. Wow. And it's fast. This thing is churning out the beers.
What days? I mean, are there certain days? Is it during weekdays?
Yes, we do. We only do it during the week, but it's also just done on demand. We don't necessarily like, okay, we run the bottling line from this time to this time. It's just as we need it. Because we have those big bright beer tanks and we have our fermentation vessels can also be converted to bright tanks, it's easy for us to just kind of be like, okay, we need 20 barrels of beer put into kegs. Leave the other 10 in there, and then when we need to package it up, we'll do it as needed.
Is this the only place you manufacture?
Mm-hmm. If you buy anything with the Mission name on it, it came from here.
Where you are shipping? If you have like special.
Yeah, we're all over the States, and we're also in, I think, 6 different countries as well.
Really? Oh shit.
All right, so once we've got our bottles, we also have our cannon line over here. This is where we're going to do our 32-ounce cans that are shipped right to double IPA. It's the beer that kind of put us on the map. It's what we're most well known for. It's 9.2% double IPA. The process works pretty much the same way. The bottles are going to come in the line, flipped over, rinsed out, flipped back over, filled up with CO2, filled up with beer, except in this case they get a pop top put on with a bottle cap, right? I love those cans. They're great for like sitting in the pool and not having to get out for a while to get another beer. I mean, I guess you could share them if you're that kind of person, but pass. But yeah, it's a lot of beer in a big can. We actually distribute those cans. You can find those in liquor stores, which is always funny seeing it like next to like a little 22 ounce.
And you sell those here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the canning line. So next thing we're going to see is going to be our canning line. For a long time, everyone kind of thought like, right, you brought good beer in bottles, right? Shitty beer came in cans. Turns out that's completely wrong, right? Because those amber glass bottles filter out most of the sunlight. You know what filters out all of the sunlight? A solid aluminum can, right? There's no way any light is getting into one of those. So that's one way we can protect our beer. Because once it leaves our warehouse, we have no control over it anymore. Once the distributor comes and picks it up, it's out of our hands. So that's something we can do to protect our beer. Now, you'll probably hear people say, but I can taste the metal when I drink it out of a can, right? That's not true. There's no metal in the beer because those cans are coated on the inside to prevent that. Right? What's happening is that when you put that can up to your face, you're smelling the aluminum. Like I said, right? 80% of what you smell becomes taste, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why anytime you're drinking a craft beer, you should always pour it into a glass. Because once again, we also add things very specifically to change the aroma of a beer. If you can't smell it, you are missing out on part of what the brewers had intended for you, right? So bottle or can, you should always pour it into a glass. It's also why in your like local liquor store or grocery store, in the craft section, it's like all cans, right? And that's not because it's cheaper, it's not because any of that, because it's actually more expensive. It's just because the cans are the only way we can truly protect our product once it leaves our warehouse. Right. So I'm going to give you guys the last little taste for the tour here. This is the Dark Seas Russian Imperial Stout. It's going to be 9.8% alcohol.
Drink it.
Somebody is that?
You'll notice some strong
Is that
notes
for the
of coffee
Fort
and
one?
chocolate in there. And if you let it rest on your palate for just a second, you'll notice some very subtle notes of plum and port wine as well.
So that's all yeast, right? There's yeast.
In this case, it's going to be the malt is going to be most of it because this is a very heavily toasted malt, right? Like I told you, like kind of like coffee. This would be like a dark roast coffee.
I know, it looks like a coffee. It does.
So this beer is going to pair really well with any sort of like dessert, or if you're like me, it can just replace dessert. I would much rather have one of these than a brownie or something.
Have you ever made a beer float? Like this would-
I have made several of them. I used to work for the Belching Beaver.
Oh, okay.
I've never eaten one because
Oh.
that just seems.
I like
gross
it
to me.
with Irish Death. Yeah, I have. And
Yeah.
it's all right if you're in the mood for it.
I just feel like I know anytime you pour it, like it always go flat really quick, and so that to me is just like that. I don't really want to like.
Yeah.
I like ice cream. I like
It does
beer.
change the beer.
I don't need them putting together.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so let's go check out our canning line. Then I got one more CO2 packaged up, all that good stuff, right? You'll notice these cans up here don't say Mission Brewery on them. They say Ashland Seltzer Company or something along those lines. So that is because in San Diego, craft beer is much more collaborative than it is competitive, right? We help each other out as much as we can. We do collaborations on beers. In our case, we have a big production facility here, so we actually do contract brewing. So that seltzer, we actually brew and can that for them. We also do a collaboration with South Park where they send us kegs. We hook it up to that using that octopus hose device back there to our canning line, and we actually can their beer for them. They brew it, we can. All right, that's all part of that kind of collaborative nature, right? Rising tide lifts all boats, that sort of thing. If we all fight against each other and undercut each other, the only people who are going to win out of that are the big three corporations who just want you to drink Bud Light.
What do they bring their beer over in for you to can it for them?
Kegs. Yeah, they just ship us kegs, and then we hook them straight up using that thing.
Who is the biggest beer manufacturer in the US?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but it would either be AB InBev or Miller Coors, one of the two. Because now they're not even individual breweries anymore. They're huge conglomerations of 17 different breweries and a bunch of craft breweries, right? 10 barrel. So yeah, that's part of the cool thing about, like I said, beer in San Diego. Like all the brewers pretty much know each other. There are obviously some people who don't like each other, but that's just human nature, right? For the most part, everybody gets along. It's easier to work together than it is to fight against each other.
If Mission Brewery had like a better entity.
I mean, it's hard to say just because like everything's a little different. Like the biggest breweries in San Diego are going to be the biggest independent breweries are going to be like us, Belching Beaver, Stone, obviously. AleSmith's really big. Those are going to be Ballast Point's not independent. They're in my constellation.
Dude, that was a follow-up question. I don't mean to interrupt, but so I saw like Ballast Point got bought by some
Tiny little brewery in Chicago. Yep.
How does that happen? Because they're
I'm guessing that Constellation bought $1 billion brewery and then didn't make $1 billion in a year, and we're like, screw this, let's get rid of it.
Interesting. How much did they sell it for? I don't know.
They didn't disclose the sales in Chicago. They did not disclose
It's
it.
not as much as the first
I
one.
guarantee you it was not $1 billion.
When they first sold it, it was like, holy shit.
I know you're wrong. If I had a brewery that was worth $1 billion, I would sell out in a heartbeat. I'd be like, yeah, cool, see you later. That was fun.
So how many craft breweries are in San Diego?
It's I don't know the exact count right now, but it's around 140. Just in the county itself. That doesn't include Orange County or like getting into like Temecula and all that stuff.
There's a lot of breweries back here.
I'm from China. Yeah, that's not like so like you bought on the brewery kits, is that just like a micro version?
Yeah, it's the exact same process, it's just much smaller scale. Yeah. Alright, so I got one more little history lesson for you guys, and then we're all done. Anybody want a little more of this Dark Seas?